It was October 14, 2019, when the Coast Guard received a distress call from the North Atlantic. A local fisherman claimed he'd seen something unusual near the old Greyhaven Lighthouse, a structure that hadn't been in operation since 1987. The man said there was a light flashing inside the lighthouse, faint, irregular, but definitely human-made. When authorities arrived 2 hours later, the light was gone. But the next morning, so was Evelyn Ward, a 29-year-old photographer from Maine who had been staying in a small Airbnb along the coast. Her rental car was found parked half a mile from the lighthouse. Her shoes were neatly placed by the car door. Her phone, left inside, showed one last video recording, 17 seconds of static, wind, and a faint whisper that said, "He's here." That's where the investigation began. Evelyn was well known in the local art community. She had a fascination with abandoned places, old schools, factories, lighthouses, places that told stories through decay. Her photography account had 120,000 followers. Her last post read, "Exploring Greyhaven this weekend. They say it still glows some nights." Police initially suspected an accident. Maybe she slipped from the rocks and drowned. But the tide that week had been unusually calm, and no body was ever found. Her camera was later recovered near the rocks at the base of the lighthouse, its lens shattered, memory card missing. But inside her Airbnb, investigators found something chilling, a handwritten note taped to the bathroom mirror. "The man in the light isn't what he seems." At first, detectives thought Evelyn wrote it herself. But handwriting experts disagreed. It wasn't hers. Greyhaven Lighthouse was built in 1892 and abandoned after a storm in 1987 damaged its foundation. 3 lighthouse keepers had died there over the years, one from an accidental fall, one from pneumonia, and the last was never found. His name was Thomas Beckett, a quiet man in his 40s who had worked the post for 6 years. In 1987, after a storm, rescuers found his quarters perfectly intact, food half-eaten, logbook open, but no sign of him. The final log entry read, "He's calling again. Tonight, I will answer." No one ever figured out what that meant. The locals called him the Lighthouse Man. Kids would dare each other to go there at night, saying his ghost still wandered the cliffs holding a lantern. But what police uncovered next turned that legend into something much darker. 3 weeks after Evelyn's disappearance, a tech diver exploring the rocky shallows found a metal case wedged between boulders. Inside, Evelyn's missing memory card, wrapped in a piece of woollcloth. The footage was partially corrupted, but digital forensics managed to recover most of it. It began with Evelyn walking toward the lighthouse at dusk, her camera light flickering. She narrates softly, "No one's been here in decades. The smell of salt and rust is overwhelming." Then, a faint male voice off camera, "You shouldn't be here." Evelyn spins around, but no one's there. The video goes shaky. A few minutes later, she's inside the lighthouse. The spiral staircase is covered in moss and sea spray. And that's when something strange happens. The beam light at the top flickers on for the first time in over 30 years. Her voice trembles. "Oh my God, someone's up there." The next 20 seconds are chaos, rapid breathing, footsteps, a loud creak of metal, and finally the camera drops. It lands facing the stairs. You can see bare feet coming down slowly, one step at a time. Then the footage cuts out. When police viewed it, the timestamp on the file didn't match. It read October 14, 1987, the night Thomas Beckett vanished. By winter, the investigation had stalled. Then something horrifying happened. A YouTuber named Caleb Foster, who specialized in paranormal exploration, uploaded a video titled "Spending the Night in the Greyhaven Lighthouse." It was posted on February 2, 2020. The video ran for 1 hour and 42 minutes, most of it uneventful, just Caleb narrating into the camera, making jokes, and setting up motion sensors. But at 1 hour, 31 minutes, something in the background changed. The lighthouse light turned on. Caleb went silent. He whispered, "That's not possible. There's no power here." Then, a voice off camera, a woman's voice, whispered, "He's here." The feed went black. Police later found Caleb's equipment still recording, but he was gone. No body. No trace. The only evidence recovered was his drone, which had captured aerial footage of the lighthouse at dawn. At the top of the tower, in the window of the lantern room, stood a man holding an old-fashioned lantern. Next to him, barely visible, a woman in a red coat. The FBI was eventually brought in after Caleb's disappearance. They reopened Evelyn's case and started interviewing locals again. One elderly resident, a retired fisherman named George Mallory, came forward. He told agents he'd seen a man carrying a lantern walking along the cliffs around 3 a.m. the night Evelyn vanished. When they showed him historical photos of Thomas Becket, he went pale. "That's him," he said. "But that can't be. That man's been dead since I was a boy." Agents combed through property records and found something even stranger. The lighthouse deed had been quietly renewed in 2018 by an anonymous trust under the name Lantern Industries Ltd. No one could trace the ownership. The signature was smudged, and the mailing address led to an empty office building in New York. When investigators returned to the lighthouse, they found something that had been missed for years: a locked trapdoor beneath the keeper's quarters. Inside were several reel-to-reel audio tapes, labeled simply by date. The recordings were later digitized. On the first tape, Beckett's voice could be heard. "The light won't stay off. It keeps turning on at night. I hear the sea calling, but it's not the sea. It's him." On another tape, recorded just before he vanished, "There's someone else here now. She came from the water. She looks just like her." The final tape ended abruptly with static and a sound that experts described as metal grinding underwater. By now, the case had become a national obsession. True crime podcasts, Reddit threads, and conspiracy channels debated whether the Lighthouse Man was a killer, a ghost, or something else. In March 2021, a documentary crew from London flew to Maine to film a special for BBC Three titled The Light That Never Dies. They were given permission to shoot at Greyhaven, escorted by local police. The footage they captured that night has never been released publicly, but one crew member, a sound engineer named Liam Collins, later gave a statement. "The air pressure dropped suddenly. My microphone started picking up voices, whispers, but they were coming from the lighthouse speaker system, which wasn't connected to anything. Then, for just a moment, I saw two figures at the top window. A man holding a lantern, and a woman in red. Minutes later, the power cut out completely. When lights came back on, one of the crew members, the director, was gone. The cameras had all stopped recording at the same exact timestamp, 3:14 a.m. To this day, no trace of her has ever been found. Forensics later discovered something extraordinary. The serial number engraved on the lantern found at the lighthouse matched an antique model made in 1892, one of a limited batch used by the first keepers of Greyhaven. But here's the twist: when analyzed, traces of modern fingerprints were found, belonging to Caleb Foster, the missing YouTuber. Even more unsettling, a single strand of long red hair was found woven into the handle. DNA confirmed it was Evelyn Ward's. How could both have touched a 130-year-old lantern? Unless someone, or something, was making sure that light never went out. By late 2022, the FBI closed the case under the classification Unresolved Missing Persons. But locals say the lighthouse still flickers every few nights, not the steady beam it once had, but a pulse, almost like Morse code. Amateur radio enthusiasts began monitoring it and claimed the light pattern spelled a single repeated word: help. Experts dismissed it as coincidence, waves reflecting off passing boats, but some remain convinced that Greyhaven is more than just a crime scene. It's a signal, a place where time folds, where the lost are trapped in their final moments. A tourist captured drone footage in July 2023 showing the top of the tower again. Two silhouettes, the woman in red now holding the lantern. Evelyn's family still visits the site every October, leaving flowers near the rocks. They've since created a foundation that funds search and rescue operations for missing women across the U.S. The lighthouse is now fenced off, declared unsafe by the Coast Guard. But at night, fishermen still report seeing that faint, pulsing light, moving slowly across the horizon, as if someone's still keeping watch. And every time the fog rolls in, someone swears they can hear a woman's voice carried on the wind, whispering the same words caught in Evelyn's recording: "He's here." If this story chilled you, if you want more real-inspired dark mysteries like this, subscribe to Dark Case Diaries, where every story hides a truth darker than fiction.